These are the assembly instructions for my Bringing It Home for the Holidays project. This project can be adapted to be either a gift box or a gift bag. These are the 4 walls of my little house. I created these blue striped walls using print and cut. So while my pieces are still flat, I'm going to decorate them. So I have these strips of dark blue cardstock that I'm going to glue right on top of the strips that are printed onto my cardstock. So I'm just putting glue on the underside of my dark blue cardstock strips, and I'm just gluing them down to my print and cut panels. After gluing down my blue strips, I've cut some thinner strips of glitter cardstock, and I'm just putting glue on the underside of them, and then just gluing them down, trying to center them as best I can in that blue strip. And I'm doing that at the top and at the bottom for all 4 wall pieces. Of the large panels, one of them goes at the back, and I'm not adding any more decorations to it. So now I have the windows and doors for my 3 pieces. I have 4 larger windows and 2 smaller ones, and I'm layering them up the same way. I have my white grid that goes onto my yellow panel, and then I'm putting glue on the back of my yellow panel and positioning it in the center of my base piece. And I'm going to do that with all 5 of my windows. So next I'm working on the door. So for the door, I'm starting with my yellow layer. I'm putting glue on the underside of my dark blue piece and then gluing it on top of my yellow piece. So there's a small little border all the way around. I'm putting glue on the underside of my white frame piece and gluing it to my red panel, which is the door. I want the edges to line up nicely. And then I'm putting glue on the underside of the red panel and gluing my door, trying to center it as best I can in the bottom of my blue piece, like so. So next I have the 3 pieces for my wreath. I'm just gluing all 3 layers together, make a nice sturdy piece. So next I'm flipping my piece over and I'm covering the underside of it in double-sided tape. I found this interesting embroidery floss that is silver, so I'm using that for my wreath. I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to adhere my end to my double-sided tape at the back. I'm positioning my thread between 2 of those semicircles like so, and I'm going to bring my thread down so that it's just along the inner circle. So if you're counting, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little bumps away from the one where you have it positioned currently. So I'm bringing it up to the next little semicircle and I'm pressing down at the back so that my thread sticks to my double-sided tape, and I'm bringing it to the next little groove from the one I've just done on the bottom. Next groove at the top, next groove at the bottom, and I'm just working my way around my shape, doing the exact same thing. I don't want it too tight, I also don't want it too loose. I'm pushing down on my thread to make sure that it's sticking down to that double-sided tape. So I should have 2 threads in every single groove. Then I'm going to flip my piece over. I'm just putting some double-sided tape over that thread, and then I'm cutting off the excess. So now I'm putting a second piece of double-sided tape on the bottom, and I'm removing the liner from my double-sided tape, and I'm going to position my little wreath on my door, centered as much as possible horizontally. So next I'm taking a fork. I want a fork with 4 tines and that isn't too wide at the top, and I'm going to use it to make my bows. So I have my ribbon on the spool on my right hand side, and with my left hand I'm taking my fork. I'm wrapping my ribbon around my fork, so it's about 4 inches from where it's folded over to the tail end. I'm bringing the ribbon that's from the spool downwards, passing the cut end over and then through the middle tine on my fork, like so. And then I'm pulling it taut, and then I'm bringing it up and through the middle tine like so. And then I'm making a knot. And as I'm making my knot, I'm kind of pulling down on the tail ends. And then I'm removing it from the fork. I'm cutting both tails at an angle. And so that's how I make my little tiny bows using a fork. Now that I've assembled my decorative elements, I'm going to adhere them to my front and my side panels. So I have my front door. I've put very thin double-sided tape on the underside of my door, but not all the way down to the bottom, because I wanted to leave enough thickness for my little border. I'm using my craft mat to find the center of my panel, And then I'm gluing my door down. So in the file, I've actually added some score lines to help with positioning. I just forgot to put them before I cut my piece. And then I'm taking the 4 windows that are the same size. I'm positioning them all approximately the same height. So I'm just putting glue on the underside of my 4 window pieces and just gluing them in. And then I have 5 presents to put on either side of the door. So I'm just going to decorate them before I glue them down. So I'm going to take one of my rectangles, positioning some double-sided tape vertically. I'm going past the edges a little bit. Then I'm removing the liner from the double-sided tape and tucking it under like so. And then I'm taking some ribbon and I'm just laying it on top of that double-sided tape and snipping off the excess. So this one is narrow, so I only did 1 piece of ribbon. This one's a little wider, so I think I'll do a second piece. I'm positioning my double-sided tape horizontally, covering my tape with the ribbon, a little bow to put in the center. I'm going to decorate the 3 others the exact same way. So now that I've turned my little rectangles into presents, I'm putting double-sided tape on the underside of them and I'm just gluing them down. So I have 2 of these pieces. They're supposed to represent snow falling off the roof, and I'm just going to decorate one of them with Christmas lights. So obviously this is going to be the one that's on the front. I'm flipping my piece around and putting a little bit of double-sided tape on the back. I'm adhering the end of my silver thread to my double-sided tape. And then I have these adhesive-backed rhinestones. I'm alternating colors and I'm sticking my thread down in kind of a wavy pattern. I'm using my adhesive-backed rhinestones to glue my thread in place. Then I'm putting double-sided tape on the other end, bringing my thread around and gluing it to the back, and then cutting off the excess. And then I've cut some Christmas lights and holographic sparkle vinyl, and I'm just adhering them along the line. So next I'm going to work on my little dormer windows, and the piece with the cutouts in it is the front of my house, and that's where I'm going to be attaching the dormers. I'm folding down on all the score lines for my little dormer piece. And then I'm taking one of my window pieces and I'm going to put glue on the underside of it. So these are the smaller windows. I have 2 triangles and then a rectangle in between them. And I'm gluing this piece in, trying to center it as best I can within the 4 score lines of that rectangle. And I'm doing that with the other one as well. And then I'm taking my roof piece and I'm folding on the score line. I'm putting glue on one of the tabs above the window. And I'm just bringing that triangular part over and gluing the edge of the triangle right to the score line of that tab. And I'm doing that on the other side as well. And then I'm flipping my piece over and I'm putting glue all over that tab that's on the side. I'm bringing that rectangular flap over. The cut edge of that rectangle is right along the score line of my tab. So I'm assembling the second dormer exactly the same way. So the 2 holes are the top of my roof piece, and I want to insert the part of my window that has like a little ledge to it into the top cutout, and then the bottom tab just fits into the lower cutout like so. I'm inserting both my dormers. I'm flipping my piece over. I'm putting glue on the underside of my tabs and just folding them back and gluing them onto the platform of my roof. I'm taking my second roof piece and folding down on the score line for that piece as well. So next I have these 2 white rectangles. I'm putting glue on the underside of them, and then I'm taking my little roof piece with its dormers. I'm flipping it around so that I'm looking at the underside of it, and then I'm positioning it onto my roof piece. I want the edges to be flush and I want the top of it to be right up against the score line of my roof. Then I'm flipping my piece over and I'm just spreading all that glue. I'm doing that with the second roof panel as well. So next I'm putting glue on the underside of these 2 white pieces with the holes in them. I'm just gluing them on the top of my roof panel, just making sure that those 2 holes are glued on top of one another. These 2 pieces are the base of my little house, and I'm just folding down on all the score lines. So the long tabs are the top of my panel and the shorter tabs are the bottom. So I'm putting glue along the side tab and I'm just joining my 2 panels together. I want the cut edge of the panel on my right to be right along the score line of my tab. and the score lines at the top and at the bottom are even. So next I'm going to glue down my decorated pieces. I'm putting glue on the underside of my floor panels, and I'm gluing them down to my white base, trying to maintain an even border all the way around between my panel and the score lines. And so next I'm going to fold these two flaps downwards. And I'm taking my roof piece. Now this is the plain one, so it goes on the back. I'm putting glue all along that top rectangle, so from the score line to the edge. Placing my roof piece down with that white part facing upwards, so that's the underside of my roof. I flip my box piece over, so I'm looking at the inside of it as well. I want to place the score line of that rectangle that has the glue on it right along the bottom edge of my white piece. I want the same amount on the left and on the right hand side of my panel. So I'm just gluing that down. And so now I'm taking my piece that has the dormers on it, and I'm going to do the same thing with it. I can't lay it flat, but it's the same principle. I'm looking at the inside of my box, and I'm putting glue all over that rectangle. And then I'm positioning my rectangle right along the edge of my white panel and making sure that there's approximately the same amount on the left and on the right, and just gluing that down. And then I'm going to flip my piece. I'm using my bone folder to spread the glue. So next I'm flipping my piece over again. I still have those flaps folded downwards. I'm putting glue on that side top from the score line to the end. And then I'm bringing my other end over. I'm making sure that the edges at the top and the score lines at the bottom are even. And so next I'm flipping my box over so that I'm looking at the bottom of it. I've pushed in those two side flaps. I'm covering those two side flaps in glue from the score line to the edge. And then I'm bringing my top flap downwards. I'm just making sure that the cut edge of the top flap is right against the score line of that side flap on both sides. And then I'm raising up that bottom flap and gluing it to those side flaps. I'm looking at the inside of my box, and I'm just going in with my bone folder and spreading that glue. So next I have a rectangle that fits right on the bottom of my box. I'm covering it with glue, gluing it down to the bottom of my box, trying to make sure that those edges are flush. So then I decided I wanted to make a little platform for my house. So this is cardboard that they put in paper packs when I buy Cricut cardstock. I cut this on my Maker 3 using the deep point blade. So I'm covering one side of my cardboard in glue, and I have a piece of 80-pound cardstock. I'm just putting it in the center of my panel. Then I have a stylus that has a rounded end, and I'm just tracing the perimeter of my rectangle using my stylus. So if you don't have a stylus, you can use a ballpoint pen that's run out of ink. You can use the point of your bone folder. I'm taking my corner and I'm folding it over right at the point of my cardboard piece. And it's going to form a nice right angle triangle. So I'm just pressing down that fold, and then I'm going in with my stylus. So I'm just drawing along the corner to create fold lines. And I'm putting glue just along the cardboard, and then just along that triangle that's created when I fold it down. And then I'm folding that down, and I'm going in with my bone folder. If you don't have a bone folder, you can use a ruler or something with a nice clean straight edge. I'm making sure that my corners are as flat as possible. And then I'm going to do that with all 4 corners. So now that I've folded down all 4 corners, I'm going to fold up all 4 sides. I'm just going to start with my bone folder, slipping it underneath that side panel, and just pushing my cardstock against the edge. And then I'm going to fold that piece over. It makes a nice tight fold around the edge of my cardboard. So I dry fit it first, and then I put glue all over the piece that I'm folding over, and then just glue it in place. And I'm using my bone folder to spread the glue. And I'm doing that with all 4 sides. So next I've cut this piece of craft board that's going to be the underside of my platform piece. I'm just taking a blue marker and coloring in the edges of my craft board so they don't show as much. And then I'm putting glue on the underside of my panel. And I'm just gluing it on top. Then I'm putting glue all over the bottom, and I'm taking my platform and I'm doing my best to center my house onto my platform piece. So I have that piece of snow that I decorated. There's like a little corner on either side. So I'm going to glue it so that those corners match up with the corner of my roof. I'm removing the liner on the double-sided tape. I'm putting glue on the top portion of my snow piece. because the bottom portion sort of hangs off the rooftop. And then I'm just placing it so that those little corners match up. So I also have the snow piece for the back. I'm putting glue on the upper portion of it and then gluing it to the bottom of my roof. And I wasn't too keen on the way that my dormers look at the top. So I created these little roof pieces. So I've already assembled one of them. I'm just going to fold down on the score lines for the other. So I have a triangle in the center and I have a tab above it. I'm putting glue on that tab. I'm folding it down and then folding the adjacent panel over. And the cut edge of that adjacent panel is right against the score line of the tab. And then I'm putting glue on the tabs that are on either side of that rectangle, tucking them inwards, and I'm gluing them to either side. Here are my dormers. I've got the triangle facing me. I'm going to turn it so that I'm looking at the bottom of my dormer. I'm putting glue all over that rectangle. And then I'm placing that rectangle just on top of my dormer, and I want the edges to be flush. And then I'm putting glue on both panels that are on either side of my triangle. I have my roof piece. The slanted edge goes towards the back and the straight edge goes towards the front. And so that's with the little roof and that's without. I'm going to do the same thing with the dormer on the left. And then I have some very thin ribbon, threading it through the hole on the right hand side. And then from behind, I'm bringing it through the hole on the left hand side. And then I'm just tying it in a bow. And so that's my bringing it home for the holidays gift box. I've created a second version, and the main difference between this one and the previous version is that this one doesn't require any printing. The cardstock that I used for this one was pattern cardstock that I purchased, and the other thing I want to add to this one is some handles that I'm going to add to the top. So I'm just putting glue for about 1/2 inch on the bottom like so. I'm flipping my piece over and bringing my thumbs together, placing the handle so that it's 1/4 inch from the holes on each side of the hole. So I've added that to the back panel. I'm going to flip my piece over and I'm going to add handles to the front panel as well. And then I'm inserting my ribbon through both sets of holes, just like I did for the previous version.